Welcome to Charter Local Edition, a program featuring preparations for the 2015 Montana Legislature. I'm your host, Mark Staples, and for this segment, we have with us the representative from House District 74, which is Ramsey, Montana, also the Butte area, Representative Pat Noonan. Pat, welcome to the program.
Thanks
for coming. This is be your third term, fourth term?
Fourth term.
Fourth and last?
Yep.
Tell me how you got into this. In the first, what's your personal background? You're from the Butte area.
Yeah. I was.
Noonan's a kind of a long-time Butte name.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Butte. Graduated from Butte High School. I was a fighting saint here in Helena.
By just because you were here, or were you on the football team?
I did 2 years on the football team. Then I broke my ankle, took a season off, and then went back. And once I didn't have to do chalks, or all I had to do was pass my classes, it was a little bit tough to go back. So.
And then when you got out, what profession are you into, or what line of work, or?
I've been doing social work for probably a little over the last decade. I started out mostly in children's mental health, ran a group home, did some school programs, case management. Recently I've moved more into work with adults with developmental disability, and specifically in the area of employment, and trying to find meaningful work for folks with a developmental disability.
And how'd you get into politics? I know it runs in the family a little bit. Your uncle was a representative here. Your uncle or your cousin, Art Noonan, was?
My uncle was a representative for Butte, and he worked for Pat Williams for a long time. I think we just had a family that was always very opinionated, and my uncle was always very good at forcing us into having, to defend ourselves and have very good conversations at the table. So we were always kind of in tune. But I remember watching the 2007 session. I mean, that's just how nerdy our family would be, as we would actually watch some of the sessions. And so I remember somebody standing up on the House floor and saying the Department of Public Health and Human Services is nothing but a vampiric organization that robs people of their will to better themselves.
Oh my!
And so
used vampire as an adjective.
Yes. And so having my mom was a nurse, my grandma was a nurse, my grandma on my dad and my mom's side, my aunts on both my mom and dad's side are nurses.
That got your Irish up?
Yes, and my dad has always worked in social services, and so having grown up in public service and done a lot of work with the Department of Public Health and Human Services, I just knew that wasn't true.
The fray. And you've been in the fray ever since you got here. You've been a vocal, and you've been a real one of the stalwarts for the Democratic Party, who I believe, unfortunately, have been in, for you a little bit, have been in the minority. Have you ever been in the majority since you got here?
My first session, 2009, we were 50-50, but we had the speaker.
You had the governor's office.
Yeah.
So, we asked for you to give us some subject to talk about, and you feel that there's some unfinished business from last session. You want to go into that a little bit?
I think we left some important stuff. I think that we did some great things last session, but I think we left a few things on the table. I think
Medicaid expansion, is that one?
Yeah, well, I think that it was. I think Medicaid expansion would be it in whatever form we want to do it. I think we left a lot of federal money that Montanans had already paid taxes for, that we had already put into, that we are seeing nothing come back for.
Your theory is federal money is our money. It's not separate money.
We paid into it. I mean, it's money that we've spent, and so we get no return on. And so that seems like money we left on the table that we earn nothing on. And so I think we left that on the table when we could have utilized that to increase access.
What are your hopes for this session?
I would hope this session that we could take a good look at that and try to at least find some sort of middle ground on how we can provide better health care for Montanans. And I think we also left a lot on the table as far as infrastructure goes, and we need to make an infrastructure investment. We know we have to do something in eastern Montana because that's a problem waiting to happen. But I think we need it all across the state, and I think we need to take a good look at the low interest rates and bonding, and maybe do some sort of mixture of actual hard cash and bonding, and make a real investment.
You're the first one in these interviews that says that a mixture would work, because it's been either borrow it or spend cash.
Right.
You're the first one I've heard speak that maybe there's a blend of some of our surplus and some of the bonding capacities. So that's an interesting take. Speaking of the surplus, touted to be somewhere between 350, maybe 450 million. In short, give some of it back, invest more in social needs and services and programs. What would you say? Do we need the 300 million that the governor would like to? He set that as, at least last time, that's what he'd like to keep in the bank. Some people say that's too much. Some people say that's just right. What would you do with the surplus, or is the surplus just not on your agenda?
Well, I guess I haven't really thought about what exactly I would do with the surplus, other than make sure that we fund what we have right now to take care of the people that we're taking care of, make sure we try to fill any gaps that we possibly have. I think that you always take a look at how we can give it back to working Montanans and give it back to the people who are giving it to us. But I think I think the rainy day fund that the governor has set aside is very prudent. That's always one fire season away from being gone. So
this is your last term.
Yeah.
And I don't know about if you have any plans to run for the Senate or whatever. That comes when it comes.
Yeah. Two years is long enough to plan ahead.
So next summer,
right?
Session's over. You get to write the history of the 2015 session that's to come. You get to write it now, as if it's next summer. What does it say? If you're writing it and you hope it turns out the way you hope it does, what happened in the 2015 session?
I would hope that we could come together and actually come up with some solutions, some compromises that move things forward. My goal since day one has been to get things done while I'm here, and so you can only do that with compromise. And so my goal and I when I went to doors and did my campaign, I think the goal of Montanans is that we come up here and we actually get something done, and we don't take sides and take an ideological stance and do nothing. We come together and get something done.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, Pat, and I thank you for running and serving. It isn't easy, and people think, this is all glory. Very little of it's glory. It's long hours.
$10 an hour.
Yeah, $10. You can't beat that. And don't forget that you get to live in a rented room on the third floor of somebody's house while they go south for the winter. Yeah, and you get to travel back and forth from Butte on icy roads. And but I appreciate that you're serving, and I wish you the best of luck in achieving the goals you set forth for yourself and for the state. And we want to thank all of you for tuning in to Charter's Local Edition. If you get a chance to say thank you to the legislators, whether you agree with them or not, just for the fact that they're doing our business, please do so. And thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yep.